It was here at Battleford's Union Hospital in November of 1982 that Melvina Bear came. She was 16 years old, she had abdominal pain, she didn't know she was pregnant. She gave birth to a baby son. Shortly after giving birth, she was told by hospital staff her baby had died. But years later, there are indications her son may have lived and may still be alive.
My name is Melvina Bear. I'm originally from Witchkin Lake, Cree Nation. Have 7 kids, 7 grandchildren. In search of one, though. Would be 8 in search of one.
Bear remembers the day that first baby came.
Like push, 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 and whatnot. He's almost here, and he was born. And then the doctor right away, he said, if your baby survives the night, we're going to send him to Saskatchewan. And like they basically, after he was born, they basically just like took him right away. And then I was like, okay, and stuff. And then the doctor had told the nurse that to get some meds to help me sleep. I've had 7 other kids, and I've never been given meds to help me sleep. So then I don't even know the time period from when, after the meds, they came in the middle of the night and they told me that he had died.
Okay.
And they gave me a baby to hold.
Okay,
right?
well they did.
So I don't even know, because like the meds to help me sleep, he could have been sleeping for all I know. And right after they said, okay, we're gonna take him, sign these papers. This could have been done at discharge, not in the middle of the night after they said, your baby, here's your baby, he died, sign these papers in the middle of the night, right? So I did. I felt empty, like really empty.
I did not come across any of those types of stories in the records that I reviewed. But it's not to say that I haven't had people share similar types of concerns with me about experiences in their family that they're looking to find more information about.
Allison Stevenson is with the Indigenous Studies Department at the University of Saskatchewan.
Historically, Indigenous women have been, really deeply marginalized by the healthcare system, the social welfare, the child welfare system, and the justice system.
Stevenson is referring to the 60s scoop, not to mention forced and coerced sterilization. Stevenson notes if the apprehension was framed as a child welfare necessity, as it possibly was in the case of Melvina Bear, just 16 and still unwed at the time of birth, then there may have been what amounted to a mandate to take her child.
There would be fines attached if they didn't alert, report, whatever terminology you want to use, unwed mothers that were giving birth. So in that regard, it was essentially a mandate that social workers see mothers as unwed mothers as they're giving birth.
Now, if it turns out that Melvina's son was taken by hospital staff because she was unwed and underage, it's important to mention this bitter irony.
I was intending to be married. So 3 days after I had lost him, we still followed through with the wedding. Because our intention was to have children, right? He was just a little bit early. And like I said, we still followed through with the wedding and stuff. And a year later, we did end up having a daughter in North Battleford, same place, but this time my husband at that time was with me at the hospital, so they couldn't take this one. So, I guess.
After losing her first son this way, Bear moved on with her life. But years later, when picking up her treaty money, she noticed her son's name, Lawrence Joseph Bear, was still on the Witchican Lake ban list.
And of course I'm upset, because this is like in your face sort of thing. I said, why is he on the ban list? I was told he died, like he passed away. Like he shouldn't even be on the ban list.
The discovery that her son was still on the ban list ultimately prompted Bear to start doing some investigation. First, she got on the phone with vital statistics.
I explained everything, and then she goes, I'll put you on hold. There was a little bit of quiet, and she comes back and she goes, as of today, as we are speaking right now, there is no record of your son's death.
This is vital statistics?
Vital statistics in Regina. Okay. So I'm, what? Right? And I get off the phone and I tell my partner, and I was like, and I could just feel, I could still kind of feel it now, but I started feeling like dizzy, and I'm kind of like, and then I said, he's alive. Like, it was just like, holy crap, he's alive, right? And with vital statistics telling me that, then I started my journey of phoning Indian Affairs in Prince Albert.
And Bear was even more stunned by what she heard next when she called up Indigenous services and had them search the status number her son was born with.
And she's like, well, as of 2000, when your son turned 18, he applied for his status card. And I go, what? Well, where did it get mailed to? And she goes, well, we can't give you that information.
Next, Bear went to the Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations for help. The FSIN put together a file on Bear's story, as well as a similar story from 1967, and passed it on to the RCMP. The RCMP haven't reached any definitive conclusions about what happened in either case, or where these babies went. As appalling as these stories are, it isn't the first time something like this has made the news. I'm just trying to get it so that I can get the top of the screen and that I can kind of scroll through kind of quickly to get to front pages. In this 1989 story out of Saskatchewan, a woman was reunited with a son she lost under similar circumstances. 39 years previously, she'd refused to put her son up for adoption. And then, so they could just do what they wanted, social services officials lied to her and told her he'd died. So this kind of thing is clearly something that could, and did, happen.
My mother wasn't even given the honor to even touch her child.
Right. Okay.
This is a totally not a 60 scoop. This is friggin' abduction. Yeah. This is criminal negligence. This is right from her womb. Oh, I don't even like to describe what this is. This is not right.
More on that next. With the RCMP investigation seemingly stalled for the time being, Melvina is pursuing her best bet to reconnect with her son. She's trying to get the Indigenous Services Department to give her the name Indigenous Services has for the person believed to be her son. But the bureaucratic machinery of Indigenous Services doesn't seem to be exhibiting a tremendous urgency in facilitating this reunion. Melvina Bear wasn't the only victim of this type of alleged deceptive adoption we visited in Prince Albert.
Hello.
Oh, li mam tinithera.
Illa jabatum magnas getnas kiganasta.
Oh, ejan yagaiwe APTN gane.
In March of 1967, Georgina McDonald experienced something similar at the hospital in Uranium City, Saskatchewan. We spoke to McDonald over FaceTime at her daughter's home.
Okay. My baby born on my bed. I was ringing the bell for nurse, not nobody. So baby born on my bed. And then about half an hour, nurse and doctor came in. The baby moving rocks. And she put it on her shoulder. I heard the baby cry. So she went to the hallway, and her baby was still crying.
The baby was to be Georgina McDonald's fourth child, and nothing seemed out of the ordinary at first.
And the next thing you know, the nurse wrapped the baby, and she put the baby on her shoulder, like to hold it like this, she said, and she walked out with the baby. And she said, I thought she was taking the baby to nursery.
Georgina's daughter, Joan Strong, is spearheading the family's effort to solve the mystery of what might have happened, and hopefully discover whether there might be a missing brother or sister somewhere. She knows her mother's story, and she's the one who's doing most of the talking to the RCMP and the FSIN. Strong says her mom was surprised to be told her baby had died. Her mom's English is a little weak, but she challenged the nurse about the supposed death.
And the nurse said, your baby died. She said, no, I delivered my baby, she said. And she said, no, your baby died. And she had to accept that. So she said, bring my baby to me. And they said to her, no, we can't bring your baby to you because your baby was put on the plane that went out, and the baby was sent out for autopsy.
When she met with a doctor some days later, McDonald continued to ask to see the body.
And finally the doctor said to her, your baby died because you're an alcoholic. My mother has never drank in her life. I grew up with a sober mother.
Georgina McDonald was never shown a body, and years later the family began looking for answers. Oddly, Vital Statistics has no record of birth or death from when Georgina McDonald came to the hospital in 1967.
What really stood out was she had a child from 1961 every year, right up till 1971, and only one gap was the year I'm talking about, 1967.
When she requested the Uranium City Hospital records of her mother's visits, Strong was told the records of her mom's visits to that hospital had been destroyed.
That's not legal. You can't burn down a person's history when they're still alive.
Then, a breakthrough. Someone with access anonymously passed on a photo of Georgina's records from the Uranium City Hospital to Joan. And the entry for when Georgina McDonald came to the Uranium City Hospital in March of 1967 was almost the same as all of her other birthing visits, but was covered over with whiteout and replaced with a handwritten entry. OBS indicated an obstetrician had been present.
It showed the day she was admitted, it showed the day she was discharged. Exact same words, OBS, OBS, they put on there. But the thing that was weird was everything on her health records was all typed, and it showed that somebody wiped this out and somebody handwritten it back.
Subsequent to this photo of McDonald's Uranium City record turning up, the RCMP acquired their own copy of the file as part of the investigation prompted by the FSIN.
The RCMP would have felt the original with the whiteout, because all I saw was a copy.
No word on whether an attempt has been made to dissolve the whiteout on the original and see what it says underneath. Whatever the exact truth is and whether it's written underneath, Joan is angry about what they did to her mom.
My mother wasn't even given the honor to even touch her child. This is totally not a 60 scoop. This is friggin' abduction. This is criminal negligence. This is right from her womb. Oh, I don't even like to describe what this is. This is not right. I'd like my parents to have a closure. I want my parents to know where their baby is. They're grown. This is a child older than me, so we don't know where this is all gonna go. But this is my parents' child. I don't know if this child is ever gonna wanna know us. The saddest thing I heard my mother say was, what if my child doesn't want to be with us? What if my child doesn't like us? No mother should ever ask that. We come from a loving mother. It just hurts me that she's like You know why? Because she's Native like me, and the system has always made us question who we are. Now she's worried her child might question that. Even if we found him or her, we can't answer for him or her because we know how it feels to not want to be Indigenous.
It's an extra cruel twist on the colonization of kinship, a term Alison Stevenson uses in her history of the 60s scoop.
Looking broadly at various ways in which the Indian Act specifically targeted gender relations, marital relations, and child rearing, I saw this child removal adoption as a form of colonization of specifically kinship, Indigenous forms of kinship and caring that were deeply embedded and important for Indigenous nations, but through Indian Act and provincial legislation was colonized.
Saskatchewan promoted a marketing-oriented transracial adoption program called Adopt Indian Métis. In this internal government memo from 1973, an Adopt Indian Métis supervisor out of North Battleford is honored as Salesperson of the Year.
Well, I do argue in my book that Saskatchewan is ground zero of Canada's settler colonial project, so I do feel that there is a particular aggressive form of colonization and colonialism that has taken effect here. In terms of understanding the 60s scoop and the child welfare system, it strikes at the heart of sort of Canadians' conception of benevolence, I guess, and doing what's best for Indigenous people, a form of paternalism.
And of course, while there may have been some conception of benevolence driving the 60s scoop, the effects are another matter.
The effects are immense, intergenerational, and ongoing, I would say. It's something that was recognized very clearly by Indigenous peoples as detrimental, harmful, and an assault on their nationhood.
Stevenson says she hasn't studied in depth the particular kind of experience Melvina Bear and Georgina McDonald had, but she says their experiences ought to be probed.
It's appalling. It's criminal, actually. It's a criminal offense. And like many of these, stories that elders are talking about, that survivors tell us about, they're criminal in nature and require criminal investigation. So I think it requires follow-up, and I think we need to really understand what's happened with these children and what's happened to these women. It's a human rights violation, and it is a criminal act. So that's, something that I think requires, further investigation.
And the Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations agrees.
Our justice unit, along with the Women's Commission, are taking these files very seriously.
Heather Bear is a vice chief at the FSIN.
The cruelty that was shown is just unthinkable. As a mother, as a grandmother, I'm very disturbed, and we will do everything in our power and use every resource we have at FSIN and pull in the right institutions, to make sure justice happens and it doesn't happen again. And of course, open the door to others. We know even at FSIN here that we've been told it has happened, but not having the strength or maybe the courage, to take that step to be out in bringing it out in the open, because it is painful.
And with others coming forward, there's the potential for a class action suit.
The more people disclose, I think, as far as, ensuring this doesn't blow away. I look at the forced and coerced sterilization of Indigenous women and girls. We started with a handful of ladies, and I think we're nearing 100, in terms of a class action. So, there you go. We don't know how many, but we know there's stories of others. Even if they're gone and deceased, they still deserve justice, and there's still time while they're all alive.
I could hear her asking me questions, like, what would you like to say to your son? And do you feel like you're ready to let him go? And like I said, that's why I bought the doll, because I was going to have a burial ceremony.
Melvina Bear has been considering for a while the possibility of symbolically saying goodbye to her lost son. But currently it does seem like she could be on the edge of finding him, if Indigenous services would just tell her his name or get a message to him.
I guess it all depends how things play out. I may or may not still do the ceremony.
Hi, I'm Christopher Reed. Thank you for watching this episode. If you have a story like Georgina's or Melvina's, APTN Investigates would be interested in hearing from you. We will not publish anything without your permission, and you can reach us at the information below. APTN Investigates has asked the office of Mark Miller, the Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations, if they could assist in reuniting Melvina Bear with her son. A communications advisor in Mark Miller's office told us the following. There are sensitivities, including privacy laws, surrounding Melvina's issue, which require us to take the appropriate steps in gathering the necessary information. As of April 25th, 2023, they have found a name match for the date of birth. However, there is no contact information associated with this name. They will continue working with Melvina and supporting her to the best of their abilities until she has answers. If Melvina's son is located, it will be up to him to decide whether he wishes to proceed with next steps in contacting his mother. And while the Saskatchewan RCMP did not agree to appear on camera, they did provide us with a statement. Saskatchewan RCMP has fulsomely investigated both files. Investigators have provided updates to the families through this investigational process. No charges have been laid. Saskatchewan RCMP is committed to following up on any new information received for either file and to keeping the families informed of any future developments. Once again, here's that information, and thank you for helping us.